what are you giving them in exchange for being a member of your community?
Hi, hello, how are you? How are you doing? Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct, and you can reach me at max@hippodirect.com for help using your podcast as a marketing tool. This is episode number 101. And before we get into that, I just want to say a quick and enormous thank you for all the support and love for episode 100. I'm just absolutely blown away by everybody who listened and all the amazing feedback and kind words. If this is your first time listening or this is your 100th time listening, make sure to cue it up because it is an absolutely special and just ridiculous episode. So today is episode number 101, and today's guest is Sue Frech. Sue is a Martech pioneer and the amazing co-founder and CEO of Vesta. Vesta is the leading online community building technology company, and I'm excited to get into what they do, Sue's incredible story, and what you can do to build a passionate community for your brand. It's Frech like Shrek. Let's get into it. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Sue Frech, aka the world's happiest marketer, the co-founder and CEO of Vesta, formerly known as Social Media Link. Sue, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Max.
Of course. Well, thank you for joining. This is really, really cool. I want to start off by shouting out our mutual buddy, Brendan O'Mara, who reconnected us after we did a little bit of work together many, many years ago. It wasn't that many years ago, but but he's obviously a very cool person in the marketing space. It's just awesome to be connected to such amazing people like you. So we're going to get into Brendan's whole background No, we're not, but we have covered that on a previous podcast. But
Yes.
today we are all about you, Sue. So we're going to get into Vesta, but before we get into that, I want to take a step back. And when you think about your upbringing and before you got into the business world, something that you've really carved out a name for yourself and really shown off your expertise for is creating this community and sense of connection between brands, between consumers. There's that community, there's that connection piece. When you think back to growing up, was there something even back then that appealed to you about the sense of community, about this sense of connection? Because it's a really cool thing that you've kind of dived into there.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think back, first, I think community means so many different things to different people. I think initially people say, oh, community, that's my local space. That's who I'm with. And then today as marketers, of course, we think digital, virtual, particularly the time period we're in. But back to growing up, I had so many communities. If you don't know me, I was highly involved in the school, in dance, in my church, with my family. So I think just a sense of belonging certainly created an identity for me. And when I went to college, I was sort of lost at a very large university, University of Delaware. And until I joined the dance team and a sorority and became part of a community, those are my best memories. And that's also really what gave me that sense of belonging and purpose. So I'm just excited that I can take those feelings and emotions and bring it into my work.
And it seems like a really natural progression there. So when did it click for you that you could actually take that area of community that you're passionate about and actually put that into work and create something from a business sense, from a technology sense?
Like lots of entrepreneurs and startups, that wasn't the plan. Exactly. I went to school for nutrition. I tried fashion merchandising. I tried so many things. I think that once digital marketing came to the forefront, that's what grabbed me most. And I think social media marketing, so not so much social media, but just the marketing component of social networking. And I was at an early startup. That's really where the light went on for me. When I saw this idea of audiences and being able to connect those audiences not only with each other but also with brands. I'm a brand marketer down to the bones, and this idea that I could connect those two in a really meaningful way, that's really when I got excited and came up also with the idea of building our own community. And that's how the business started. So it wasn't about building brand owned communities, it was really about our own, because I just felt like if we could deliver a ready made audience of highly connected and influential people amongst their own peers, not necessarily paid influencers, a brand would see value in that. They had to be like minded, aligned on either values or interests, but there certainly was value. And that's what really got me excited.
And that's a huge thing to think about because community from a person to person sense is really, really intuitive. And it's very easy to internalize this thought of a community of people interacting and engaging with each other. When you throw a brand into the mix in a thing that to its definition is not a single person, unless, we're going to open the can of worms, a personal brand, that's a whole different hurdle, a whole different thing to consider. When did it click for you that connections between people and brands were actually possible?
I have this great story. So I was at a social media startup, and I brought one of my clients on board, and they invested nearly $500,000 to build an app within Facebook. So today that app would probably cost about $5,000. So you can imagine the knowledge that we had was of course of value, but we built this app, and I won't say who the client is, but nobody showed up. Well, they didn't show up because the app wasn't relevant to Facebook at the time. The brand wasn't relevant. The people that were on Facebook and on social at the time had no idea this brand even existed, and they certainly weren't going. It was a retail store. Certainly weren't going to shop at that store, no matter what. So that was devastating in the moment, but with all frustrations, devastations, hurdles, is something positive comes on the other side. And that's when I realized, it's not enough to throw the party. You actually have to have the people that are going to show up. And so we built this incredible virtual environment with shopping and downloading furniture. And again, I don't want to give away the brand, but it was just a really incredible experience. And the 65 people that downloaded it was everybody in my office. So, when I left that company to start, which is what I did, I left to go start, it was about making sure that we thought of the marketer first. And it's not that we didn't want to have an incredible consumer experience, but I felt like the challenge was for marketers was, how are they going to know how to have that direct relationship? I mean, you've worked in CPG, and that's a lot of my background. The customer was always the retailer. The customer wasn't the actual
Right.
customer. So, and I always find that ironic, and it makes so much sense when you work in shopper, but if you don't work in shopper marketing and you say customer, a CPG brand's like, no, that's my consumer, that's my shopper. So if I could deliver that audience and make it so easy for the brand, I knew again I had an advantage because they were used to talking to their customers. And I love that Facebook made it so easy for brands to build this free audience and build that direct to consumer relationship and think differently about how they were engaging. But I also love that they turned around and said, we're going to charge you to reach that audience. So that also is what triggered an opportunity for us.
And it was at the time $500,000, which is how much I'm paying you to be on this podcast. So it's pretty crazy how that comes full circle now.
Don't tell my kids.
Cat is out of the bag. So let's get to Vesta, which formerly Social Media Link. So I know you have 3 kids, but this is, I'm sure, another baby of yours.
It is.
And you started it back in 2009, and fast forward, been over a decade of just amazing growth. It's since been acquired. You've had some rebranding along the way. You've won plenty of awards and a real visionary in the space. How did it become clear to you that instead of being a marketer in a giant CPG, that one day you're going to actually start your own company and you're going to be a leader in this space?
I definitely owe it to my parents. They said that I was always going to start my own business. I did not know that. I had started a company in 7th grade. I was making, I'm going to date myself, but tie-dye shirts and shorts and,
Oh, yeah. Hey, those are bigger than
barrettes
ever.
boxer shorts for girls and Ked sneakers. And I made so much that I actually had to file taxes in 8th grade.
Oh my
And
God. Wait, hold on. So you did taxes in middle school is what I'm hearing.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God. You could probably
And
help a lot of people out.
and it was really because I was passionate about what I was doing. And, again, filling a need. I made them as gift purchases. Nobody wants to go out and buy a gift, so I made them as gift box sets. But that's something that my parents saw early on. Neither of them are entrepreneurs. My dad was at the same company for 40 years. My mom was a teacher, but they supported what I did. And so I had this, what I always say is this parachute or safety net, where I just knew I had people around me that would support me. If I failed, I would be able to do something else. So the opportunity to start my own company was because I was so passionate about digital and social and this community idea that I went to a couple of clients and I said, if I did something like this, would you work with me? Would you? And before we even launched the technology, my site said under construction, we had our first client, which was Bayer Consumer Healthcare. And so it was really exciting that my company got self-funded, because I went to clients first and said, if I develop this technology, would you join? Would you spend money with me? And it was yes. So I knew I had something, which of course does help with the risk, but there were certainly lots of risks and ups and downs and times I couldn't make payroll, all the things entrepreneurs go through. But I felt like I had a safety net because I had a good support system and I had really good clients that had become friends over time.
Well, you really were investing in yourself from the get-go, and you had a lot of others who were early adopters and investing in yourself. And so it's neat that it came about that way. How did you get involved on the technology side? Because the platforms that you and your company have created, the communities that you've created, have some really, really cool and visually appealing technology. And tech is such a curious and almost like a foreign world to me. I'm always curious about how it comes about and how you get from A to B as far as actually producing that product.
Yeah, I think in any, again, startup world, it's about hiring the best people. And so for me, I did not know from a technology standpoint, I'm not a coder, I'm not a software developer, I'm not a product manager, all the great people I have on my team now, but I certainly knew from a brand marketer standpoint what I wanted. When we looked at transitioning from a one product to building these online communities, it was really, and I'll give shout out to Brendan, it was clients like Brendan that said, hey, can you do this? And I said yes, not knowing if I could, but of course I said yes.
Oh, the truth
So
comes out, Brendan.
absolutely, he knows that. I still ask him today for his opinion. But I went to, again, several clients, that group of trusted people, and said, what would this look like? What do you want? What don't you have today? When you're engaging directly with your community, your audiences, what don't you have? What tools, what functionality? And we built an in-house tech team. So we started with a outsourced tech team, which is common in the startup world, unless you're the developer and the founder. And then we started to build our own team. And that team, I have several people that have been with me for 6+ years. They are incredible, and it's about me saying and going in with a challenge. They're problem solvers and saying, can you do this? And they have that same answer. We'll figure it out. Yes, we can do that, but if we don't know how, we'll figure it out.
So help me figure out. So you mentioned solving problems, and obviously that's what you do to your core. But in those early days, I'm sure there were plenty of hurdles you ran into. I mean, there's a ton you needed to figure out on the tech side. There's a certain crazy amount of things that you need to do to attract such big name, big brand clients. What are some of the biggest hurdles that you saw in those early years, and how were you able to tackle those?
Yeah, early on, think social, think 2009, brands were very nervous. The first question we always got was, what if they say something bad about me? So having answers for those questions, talking about having a human set of eyes monitoring, that was our solution to that. And the other was, of course, they're going to say it about you anyway. At least now it's like the person talking behind your back, or saying it right to your face. You'd rather know so you can address it. The second was really around the legal and the compliance component of it. I worked at GSK early in my career. I understood the importance of adverse event reporting, of all of the legal stuff that scares other people, that actually gets me kind of excited because I know I can answer and address. So we were able to go into some of the biggest brands, and I could sit with their top legal counsel, compliance and regulatory, and say, I have the safest way for you to play in this space. And that was fun. That was, that didn't happen overnight. It was definitely trial and error. And it was, again, listening to our customers saying, well, if you do this, then I can actually work with you. If you create this safe gate, I can work with you. And so we just continued to layer on all of those compliance and regulatory and legal requirements so that we had something that other companies didn't have. And that gave us a huge advantage. But again, that was a huge hurdle because if I couldn't accomplish those things, I certainly could not work with the big name brands that we're working with today.
And is there a big difference you see as far as working with the biggest brands you work with versus somebody that might have a smaller budget or a smaller company?
It's such a double-edged sword. I absolutely love working with startup brands. It's so fun. I my favorite is working with the founder. The passion that they have, the belief, the problem they solve, that's why they're here. They've solved some sort of problem is incredible. So we work with a lot of startups and we've helped startups get sold. So that's really exciting as well and acquired by some really big companies as well. Hello Products was acquired by Colgate. We were there from the beginning with them.
Oh, wow.
Not sure if you're familiar with them, but the oral care company. But so
Mhm.
it's really fun. What you don't get from them is obviously every penny counts. So you don't get the trust and you don't get the runway that you might get from a bigger brand. They also don't have a lot of resources. So then the flip side, I go to some of the larger companies that we're working with, and they've got a team of 10 people sitting in our meetings. They've got strategy, insights. And so I learn from those people. And so that's what I can bring to the rest of my clients is what are some of the best practices, what are the questions they're asking, so that I can make sure that I'm bringing some of that knowledge and doing the knowledge transfer for some of the smaller brands that we work with. But I would say that there are pros and cons to both. They are so different. Personally, it's more fun for me to work with some of the smaller brands, but let's be realistic. The big brands pay the bills. So, and of course, it gives us credibility and authenticity and social proof. So we like having them on our roster as well.
And they like having you as well. So, listening is a theme that keeps coming up. And you yourself are a really attentive listener and open to whether it's constructive or what's the other destructive criticism. So, that's clearly been key to your career. When you look at Vesta today, what is it that makes you and the team and what you offer so different than a lot of the other offerings out there? What is your main product, if you will, that sets you apart and you're most proud about?
I'd have to say our team. And so even though it's a software and it can be a self-serve, somebody built that and they delivered the best practices. And I always say, imagine that I came in and I said, Max, I'm going to build you the most beautiful five-star restaurants
Oh,
and
well,
good
thank
luck,
you.
go run it and go run it. That's what happens. Brands are promised this beautiful environment, the fanciest tools, think that the best stove in the world, and nobody tells them how to do it. It's they are not experts in community engagement. They're not experts in connecting with consumers in this type of environment. They're good at so many things. So you layer that on, there's a huge risk that community is going to fail. And so we deliver a team, and not, again, even if it's a self-serve environment, we deliver a team of experts that are going to get you launched and give you a strategy and best practices. But they're also the ones that built the product. So our clients have access to our product and our tech team all of the time because our teams love listening to them, but they're also able to explain to them how to use certain functionality and integrations. So I really say that our differentiator is the team. It's our technology, but at the end of the day, our team built that technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes all the difference when you have somebody there that you can reach out to with questions or feedback and they're listening at any given time,
Yeah.
especially when it's software that you definitely are not familiar with to start out with.
Yeah.
So I think back to how we work together and what you guys created and run with the Snuggle Bear Den, which just completely opened a new line of possibility for us as far as the brand engaging with consumers or customers, whatever you prefer, and vice versa. It just created so many possibilities, opened so many doors. There's so many things you can do with it. When you look across all of your clients, what is the feedback that you get the most on the positive standpoint of how you guys have helped create, X new thing for them or open this new door for them? What keeps coming up as the thing that your clients are most happy about?
I think they're most excited from like just a surface level that this many thousands to millions of consumers are willing to talk about their brand and you don't have to pay them in like a really authentic way. And their amplification, the word of mouth. So that's, and I say surface because there's a shock that happens to a lot of people. I remember the first community, program we did, and I turned it on. I'm like, wow, it was vitamins. I'm like, people are really going to talk about this. I'm so excited.
Oh, I
That
love the
moment
vitamins.
happens. Yeah. And that moment is gummy vitamins. Who doesn't love gummy vitamins? But
Ooh.
it's that moment happens with every client that they look and they get to go into the dashboard and they see all the activity and the sharing engagement. And so there's a shock. So I say surface. What they love and why they keep coming back is the data and the insights. And I believe, through time, we will become a data company first, always thinking about the consumers and always thinking about brands and marketers as a connection between the two of them. But the data and the insights, and I call it zero party data, it's data that consumers are willing to give up in exchange for something, better products, services, insights, behind the scene, the Oz. But the data and the insights is what is the value that they get, because it helps them make better business decisions, better marketing creative, less risk, innovation, certainly marketing campaigns, and all their communication. So all of that can be run through the community before you launch anything. And so that data is super powerful.
And I'm a big fan of the Wizard of Oz, but I don't think I've ever heard the term Oz used like that. It's great. It's great imagery. I have to add that into my repertoire.
It's an advantage, like you think, God, a brand I love, Patagonia. I mean, the idea, and I think it's like the way back from, like even ESPN does it now, the 30 for 30, like the
Yeah.
behind the scenes. And I'm watching the Michael Jordan one now, like the behind the scenes is what you live for, and that's, brands never thought that consumers cared about that. They do. They want to know. We posted a question to our members in our own community just a few weeks ago and saying, if you could ask a brand manager anything, what would you ask them? We had 6,000 questions come in. And they're
Oh my
awesome.
God.
And so I said, I could do a whole reality show and maybe have another product here. Shh, don't tell anybody. But
We'll keep it private.
Yeah, exactly. A consumer's just talking to brands and hearing that conversation and that dialogue. So it's really interesting from that perspective as well.
And you're welcome. That was me who asked you the same question 6,000 times. So this is quite the payday for you. So you mentioned the whole aspect of all the data behind the scenes. What does that look like on your end? How have you been able to create solutions that take all this amazing data, however you want to say it? I still don't know to this day.
Me
You
too.
take all this amazing data and figure out how to present that in a way that's easy to understand and that brands can actually gain insights from it and take action and use it to better their brand overall.
Yeah. So one of the first conversations we have with clients is understanding what the business impact is going to be of the community. So we sit down and say, what are you hoping to achieve? So then we go back to our team and we ensure that we're capturing that type of data. So if we want to understand how to drive loyalty over the long term and what does that look like, then we are creating loyalty surveys through the platform. We're looking at engagement numbers over time. If we're trying to launch new products successfully, every new product launch with positive reviews preceded, then we're ensuring that the content that we're creating and the people that we're activating are generating great reviews. So all of those decisions are being made by the data. But at the end of the day, our platform is cloud-based reporting and insights. We have a team that is going to help with those insights to really uncover what those decisions are. So it's not just the data points. Again, and I believe a data scientist, we don't have a data scientist to be totally transparent on our team. We have incredible insights people, but a data scientist, a total nerd, would absolutely love our
As
platform.
they're eloquently known.
Yes, and I'm only jealous. That's why I call them a nerd. But it's absolutely incredible volumes of data and the connection points. Because it can connect to your CRM and it can connect with your sales data. So there's so many connection points. So I believe that, as we look forward, the way we're showing the data today will be very different, even in 6, 12 months, 24 months from now.
And what kind of data are we talking about? So if I'm putting on my data scientist hat and, handy dandy name tag, are you sending out surveys to everybody in the communities that you create? Are you looking at the actions they take? Like where do you most commonly see this data from an input
Yeah.
standpoint?
It comes from several places. So first is the registration data. So that's just your demographics, basic information that you would expect to collect when someone joins a community. The second is your activity. So where do you share? How do you share? What social platforms are you on? What retailers do you shop at? Where do you write retail reviews? So that's just all of the activity, the content you're absorbing, the discussions you're engaging with. And the third is the research, the surveys. So we tie all of those together, and the surveys are absolutely incredible because consumers are really willing to share so much deep information. We make so many assumptions with media today, even personalized media, and that's the air quotes you're not seeing right now, but that,
I can feel them.
Yeah, you feel them. That I say, listen, I'm shopping for a fishing pole. I don't fish. My son wanted to fish. And next thing I know is the next 50 ads are on fishing poles, and like, where are the ads for shoes? Because I'm actually more interested in shoes and handbags. So there's so many assumptions that are made, even though it is more personalized and media's gotten better. But imagine if I could say to you that I've got a community for a large big box retailer and say, today I'm looking for a fishing pole, but tomorrow I'm throwing a birthday party, and next week I'm actually cooking dinner and I want to have, an intimate dinner in my house. Imagine if you could have that level of information. What type of content and conversations would you have with those consumers? Again, at scale, it completely changes the game. And that's what we do. We say, we are going to give you a level of data that you cannot get anywhere else, because it's all three of those pillars, like you said: profile data, activity data, insights. And it will make the personalization for your community members so much more relevant. So you're not wasting media. They're more engaged, and they're more likely to actually take an action, which at the end of the day, in most cases, is a purchase.
Purchase in air quotes, of course.
Yes.
So,
Love air quotes.
so you have helped create, and the monster that you have created has helped create. So I'm sure there are a few tips you've picked up along the way. So when you think about all the different communities you've created, for anybody, whether it's somebody who's using your software or whether it's somebody who is just starting to make a name for themselves on social media, something from that standpoint, what tips do you have for starting and building a healthy, growing community for your brand?
We always start with the segments. Who are your different audiences? Because you have to speak to them differently. If not, you just build a website. If you're not going to deliver personalized content, engagements, offers, then you probably don't need us. So it's really about that ability to do that, the personalization. So you want to make sure that you know who those targets and segments are. The second, and it's critically important, is the value exchange. What are you giving them in exchange for being a member of your community? And it's not always a free sample. We get asked that a lot. It's not always a coupon. I have plenty of communities that, they're selling a $3,000 product. I have trucking communities, with focus on professional truckers. It's not about the free sample, but what is that value exchange? And so I think it's really critical that, we bring in those challenging questions, say, okay, what is it that you're hoping to achieve from the members, but what are you going to deliver to them? And so we focus on those two things right from the get-go. And that's, we say that's a great launching pad. If you have both of those things in place, we can start off in a really strong position.
And for the truckers, I think giving away a free truck, I'm sure, is something you do all the time as well.
Yes.
And when you think back from time and time again, creating these different communities, what can you attribute to being the single biggest driver of your growth, and how you've been able to grow your brand, but also how you've been able to grow the communities of so many big name brands out there?
I would love to say that I'm building something so innovative. I think our technology is, but the idea of community, like we talked about early in the beginning of this podcast, is community has been around. Your audience is there. You are not leveraging it. It's wasted opportunity. And who wouldn't want? I would say, I'm like, which marketer would not want to have a direct relationship with millions of consumers who want to talk about them, purchase their product, and drive loyalty for them, advocacy, word of mouth. So that's what we talk about. You have that. So you may have it at a small scale. You may have it at a large scale. You look at some of these huge brands that have crazy followings, but you're not leveraging it through tools. So we just try to simplify what you're doing. We say less tools, better marketing. And it's really about us saying, you have this audience, give them a home, give them a destination, and be smarter and more efficient about how you're connecting with them. And so, I think that's been one of the attributes for our growth, is just a simplification of it. If you go in and say, I'm going to build you this huge monstrous house on a lake and it's going to have all these things, and you start to grow and build it, it's frightening. It's frightening for a brand marketer. They don't want to take that risk. If you go in and say, listen, you have this audience already. They may just be your customers. Imagine if I go and I buy you're a cosmetic brand and I'm online for the first time and I'm buying your product. Imagine if I could tell my 2,000 or 5,000 friends about it. That's that opportunity that you're missing. And again, so many different examples of how you're not using a community. But I think that that's been a key to our success, is that the concept is so simple. The technology is complex, but the concept is really simple.
It is. And I think when you think about a community that is active and growing, I think it can be a buzzword. Maybe we put this in air quotes as well, but engagement keeps coming up, and brands have changed obviously over time, how much value they put into, for example, Facebook likes or social media interaction, things like that. But there's, any way you slice it, a community where people are actively participating and, getting involved in the projects that you're sending out and surveys and things from that regard is going to be much more appealing to a brand than a community that, for lack of better words, is just sitting there. What have been the biggest incentives or drivers that you have seen that actually do provide enough value to encourage consumers to interact with brands?
I think, it depends on the time period. I'd say, pre-COVID, it was really about surveying the members of the community and asking them, what do they want? So you have a range of people saying, I want to be the first to know about products. I want resources and content. We have a lot of communities focused on parents, on new parents. So they are really looking for resources and education, information. I'd say today, we had every community survey their members when this whole COVID pandemic started and said, how can we be there for you? I don't mean to make light of the we care commercials, but enough with the we care. Like, what can we actually do? And,
right.
And how can we make an impact? And so we had lots of great stories and ideas that brands shared, everything from, share your chalk art with us, say that 10 times, and we'll feature you.
when Shelly sells seashells, you say that right after.
Exactly. And just featuring the members on the community on the hero image, that goes so far. So that's why I say the timing is so important, being in touch with them. And that's where that insights and data piece becomes critical. But, you definitely have ranges of clients that will reward their VIPs and say, listen, I'm going to give you early access. You're going to test this product before anybody else. You're going to give us your feedback. We had a protein drink company that wanted to change their packaging, and they went to the community. They were all set to go, like manufacturing line, design was done, went to the community, 90% said, do not change your packaging. So you've got this community of 70,000 people saying, do not change your package. Think as a brand marketer, like, we just saved your ass, like we saved your job. But think about the power of that. So, but that was relevant in that moment. And then the missing piece is often not closing the loop. Going back to the community saying, thank you. Because of you, we kept this product, and here are the reasons why, and here's what other members said. So oftentimes that loop might not be closed. I love getting surveys from companies. It gets me excited because not only is it a potential prospect, but the loop is never closed. I just bought a new car. I get a survey. I have no idea what they do with that data. I don't know what it means. Imagine if they came back and said, because of your survey, we're now going to add this service during the car selling process. So I think the closing the loop, a community allows you to do that, is a value in itself. But I'd say, what's the biggest engagement or tool, or what gets consumers most excited? It is really different. I know every marketer hates that. It's different for everybody, but it is really different for every community.
I love that. I actually love when people say that. That alludes to something I've really been wondering about, which is, for somebody who has a brand and is interested in building a community around that brand, obviously there are so many different options, so many different social media platforms that you can, in a way, do that on. What makes the communities that you invest to offer different? What are you getting if you do a community through Vesta compared to a community that you would do through a Facebook group or an Instagram page, something like that?
Yeah, I say to those marketers very bluntly, have we not learned our lesson? So when Facebook first launched, and Brendan will tell you this, I mean, how exciting, 1 million fans. Didn't we not all want, I was paid, I was at a social media agency. Did we not want 1 million fans? We did. yay, Facebook. Thanks to all the marketers, you built my audience for me. And now I'm one of the largest media platforms in the world. So have we not learned our lesson? I mean, you build that group on a third-party platform. You do not own that data. You do not own that relationship. And you certainly don't know if it's secure. So I think that it is absolutely a place to deliver very smart and targeted media. I mean, I can appreciate probably weekly I buy something off Instagram. I'm like, oh, they know me so well. So I think that there is absolutely a place for those groups and that segmentation and the personalization that happens through the media placement in those social channels, but that is not an owned platform. Imagine if your audience moves. Well, guess what? They're doing it. Have we not learned? They're moved from Facebook to Instagram. God forbid my teenage daughters were on Facebook. Absolutely not. Now they're on TikTok, Snapchat. So, how do you move those audiences? You don't. You build the community, and all of those platforms through their APIs integrate right in, and all of the sharing happens on them. So it's one of those that I have no problem going into a brand marketer and say, have we not learned our lesson?
That's awesome. It is a beautiful monster that you have created, and I can feel your passion with it. So I love it. Hey, it's Max. Shocker, I know. You know what else is a beautiful monster? Creating a podcast. And I could go on and on and on about the positives of creating a podcast, but you've probably heard that, so I'll spare that for now. What you might not know is how damn time-consuming a podcast is. Did you know that it could take 5 to 6 hours to produce and spit out a finished episode every week? Well, I am here for you, and you can think of me like the Instapot of podcasting. Connect with me at max@hippodirect.com if you want a podcast for yourself or your brand, but you don't want to deal with this terrible time commitment. I can help you with the 3 P's of podcasting. That is planning, production, and promotion, and we will bring your podcast to life. Let's make it happen. Email me at max@hippodirect.com. Now, back to Sue and Vesta. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get to a segment on inspiration and creativity. So to start us off here, what do you do to stay creative?
I love talking to prospects and clients. I listen to webinars, podcasts, and I think that just honestly being around the team that I have of creative people, it may not sound exciting, and it's probably pretty common, but listening
it sounds exciting. I'm excited.
I would sit all day and be in client meetings, which is what's so exciting about the podcast. But having that opportunity to talk one-on-one and hearing what their challenges are, what their ideas are. I mean, there's so many incredible marketers and marketers that we work with that it inspires creativity. And I certainly, following the world around me, certainly listening to what other marketers are doing and saying and challenges is what's inspiring me every day.
So let's start there. So you mentioned right off the bat, webinars and podcasts. So there are an insanely growing number of webinars each and every day about anything you could imagine. When you are, I guess, prospected with a webinar upcoming, however they target you, what type of webinars get you the most interested and excited? Like, what do you like to hear about if you're, going to commit to an hour of listening to something on the web?
2 things. One, the host, the guest, who's speaking. And the second, what am I going to learn? Constant student. I say most of the successful people around me, yourself included, are students for life. We
Please stop.
learn.
I'm crying.
I'll pay you later for that. But, I think that this opportunity that I can constantly learn. So that's what gets me so excited. So I like to listen to webinars. When GDPR first came out, I listened to webinars. It was just the opportunity to
data
learn.
Webinars,
Yes,
data regulation webinars.
Exactly. So exciting. That's what I do on my Friday night these days. But no, seriously, I think it's the content that I'm going to learn from. So I don't want to hear from my competitors. I don't want to hear from the things that I've heard 3-4 years ago. I want new, I want innovative, and I want to be able to have a takeaway.
And what about on the podcast side? So are there any podcasts that you've been listening to for years or that are go-to for yours? And, the check is in the mail for this podcast name drop. But in addition to this one and your podcast, yes.
Yes, and your podcast. It's the same thing. There is something so exciting about startups and the entrepreneur community. I absolutely love, how I built this. And that's my my go-to, and of
Oh
course
yeah.
your podcast, Max, as well. But I mean,
Thank
I
you.
think that
Sealing the envelope now.
but I do. I love listening to entrepreneurs. And it's not even just that, I started this because I'm an entrepreneur. There's so much excitement and passion, and there's so much I can take away, but I love listening to their fails. I love hearing how they overcame some of their biggest challenges and still have success. So those are my favorite podcasts.
Yeah, those are always great, and I am not biased at all. And you also mentioned that you could sit in client meetings all day, but physically it's not possible to have client meetings 24/7. You do need some sleep. You do need to do some things away from work. So when you are not working, and I'm sure you're somebody who is constantly brainstorming and constantly thinking about the business, but from time to time when you have those few minutes to kind of take your mind off the business and do something in your free time, what do you like to do?
On a day-to-day basis, I absolutely love to cook. And I'd love to entertain. So this has been really challenging. I think my family's probably gained 50 pounds each because I'm cooking for like 100 people every night.
I'm
I love
sure
to
it's good.
bake. But on a part, like from growing up, I love to dance. I still tap dance. I tell my children it's a life skill. They argue that it's not, but I'm still tap dancing. So I do like music and staying active in that sense as well.
So let's get to a fan favorite segment called the Wild Business Shoutout of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
Wild Business Shoutout of the Week. So this is where we talk about a recent brand or campaign that caught our attention. And there's some, I don't know if I'm saying this, ELF, ELF. I don't know, but I'm a big makeup user, but there's something they did during the pandemic that was super eye-catching and breakthrough and a really cool campaign. Do you mind walking us through that?
Yes, and I'll just a little bit of a backstory in it. I love mashups. I think of Video Music Awards a million years ago. You may not even been born yet,
No,
but
that was only thousands of years ago.
exactly.
No, VMAs, yeah, of course.
Yeah, Axl Rose, Elton John. Recently, Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett. I love mashups. So when it can happen in the music world and it's contrasting, that is so fun. It's shocking. It's exciting. Of course, it's press worthy. So Elf Cosmetics, ELF Cosmetics, partnered up
Ah,
with Chipotle. And I mean, what Chipotle? We all know Chipotle. I mean, you're buying great Mexican. Where in the earth would you combine cosmetics and Mexican food? And they created an entire line, and all of the products were named around the different Chipotle ingredients. And they created a bag, a makeup bag that looks like one of their little silver burritos, and it's sold out completely sold out. So fun, engaging, but again, really listening to their audience and their consumers. They've done this incredible job. You can follow and look at them on TikTok. But I just think that was so creative, and they both know that they're actually doing okay during this time period. I mean, people are testing more makeup, and of course they're getting food delivery, but to come together in such a unique and sort of, to me, surprising way was something that I give them total cred for and shout outs for.
I love that example. And Chipotle has a history of doing really, really cool and breakthrough advertising campaigns. So that's nothing new from the Chipotle standpoint, except this, I mean, you're talking about a bat, like taking the foil or whatever it is, taking the packaging of the actual burrito and turning it into a makeup bag, cosmetics bag. That's something so out of the box, out of the bag, out of the burrito, that
Mhm.
it, no question, it's super breakthrough. And obviously they were really smart how they went about it. I know this has such a TikTok tie to it. I have to ask, did you stumble across this yourself, or did one of your daughters see it on TikTok and told you about it?
My daughters. So yeah, absolutely. And they are, I say this, I can only talk to them in 15-second increments, or they're already on to something else.
Of
So thank
course.
you, TikTok, for
Next.
ruining all communication for Gen Z. But
Just wait till we get to the 1 second video platform. Then it's going to really change things.
but yeah, no, I mean, they are definitely staying up on the trends, and that's what's so brilliant about TikTok. And I give them, again, incredible credit, because Elf was one of the first that commissioned for a song exclusively for them. And then, of course, then you have millions and millions of teenagers and Gen Zs going out and creating dances around that song. So authentic, organic, unpaid, and after that point, but they've just done a really incredible job as well.
It's an incredible way that they've gone about it.
And I think the way you described it really kind of enlightened something for me. TikTok, it sounds funny because people, especially those who aren't teenagers anymore, are curious about TikTok or if they should have an account or what they should do on it. And I think brands especially have struggled for so long just to be natural and authentic when you're talking to consumers on social media and interacting with them. And it's always like you see so many brand fails of just going about it in a corny standpoint. And you think TikTok would breed tons of those brand fails from that perspective. But when you think about the idea that you could theoretically create something that millions and millions of potential consumers are literally creating dances to and lip syncing to, and have the potential to go all around the app, and now people are sharing TikToks on other platforms. That's a huge opportunity, of course, if you can get it right. So that kind of opened a new door for me there.
Absolutely. So many things you can predict and guess. And I think you had one of your other guests. I apologize. The candy lady. The candy woman. I don't know. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know her.
yeah, Willy Wonka. No, I'm just kidding. No, Sarah Hannington from My
Yeah,
Custom
Sarah.
Candy. Yes.
Yeah, for My Custom Candy. I love, like, we've all had these ideas and we've not come up with it. I couldn't in a million years have come up with TikTok. I mean, I just am floored every day that people can spend hours, and many of them are fails, so dances and fails, but it's not one of the ones. So I'm still shocked by it, and I'm excited to watch how it evolves and it becomes a marketing tool. So that, because it will be, if it's not already. But I could not have created that one ever. That was not in my brain.
Oh, come on. I'm sure you had the idea first. Shout out Sarah, episode 94. Let's get to a segment called The Unusual. So here, think about pet peeves, quirks, and weird talents. And I'm not going to let you say tap dancing because you already tapped on that one. Let's start with pet peeves. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve is wasted space.
Those tap dance shoes.
Yeah, so if you are loading my dishwasher, which we have a large family, so lots of people are helping load the dishwasher, I will work my hardest to get as many dishes in as possible. So I think that suitcases, like rolling things, I don't like packing my groceries. I'm a little OCD about letting someone else, now I have to let somebody else, or I've had to let somebody else pack my groceries. It's frightening how stressed out it makes me. But organization and because of the wasted space, I'm not like a crazy type A, but that is a weird thing that I have for sure. A pet peeve.
And now I'm imagining like 700 people trying to load your dishwasher at the same time. So
yes.
Thank you for that image. How about quirks? Is there something that maybe your kids or your family, friends, someone on your team has called you out for that's a little bit quirky about your personality, but nothing you're looking to change? It's who you are.
Yeah, it's so funny when the person that I'm sitting across from recognizes it, I'm like, we're good friends. It's when I eat, none of my food can touch at all.
Oh, we're good friends.
Yeah, so it's you don't notice it right away. We're out to dinner, you're at my house, and then you're sitting next to me, and this just happened the other day. We're not allowed to see some people, and it's a funny reaction, because if it actually touches, I have to like work to either scrape it off or cut it off or not eat it. So it's just a really bizarre quirk of mine. Yeah.
I had the same exact thing growing up. I think I've eased up a little bit on certain degrees of that, but I still don't like when things are crazy blended together. For me, I don't know if you saw the same thing. For me, I found it depends if is this a terrible word to use, but if something's really like runny or more liquidy,
yes,
then it bothers me. But if it's stuff that's pretty solid consistency wise, then I think I'm okay with it for the most part.
Yeah. So you're saying I'm a child.
I am. Yes, that was thank you for paraphrasing. And then how about weird talents? So in addition to tap dancing, what's something that's maybe more unique and you're really good at, but has zero impact on your job? And this could literally be a memory trick or, something you're really good at just identifying instantly. It doesn't have to be, a major hobby or something like that.
I hope this isn't a hobby, because that would be scary. And why is everything I say related to food? I don't know. Is it lunchtime?
Hey, food is fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Love food. Not shy about that. It is the ability to get leftovers into a container perfectly.
Ooh,
so you will all
one.
now, as you have leftovers, particularly at Thanksgiving, it's quite a challenge, that there isn't, maybe it's related to the wasted space, but I have this gift that you will look at a container and say, there's no way that's fitting in there. I'm like, yes, it is. And it will fit perfectly. So now when you're cooking dinner and you have a leftover, you can think of me. But I have this incredible ability to perfectly align what's left in that bowl or dish into a container. Perfect fit.
And that is how you got the entire leftover Thanksgiving turkey into a square 2-inch container of Tupperware.
Exactly. My secret.
So do you have a crazy amount of different size Tupperware and different containers then?
I do. I don't work with this client, but gosh, I would love to work with Rubbermaid. They
There
have
you go.
some
Dream
really
client.
cool, really cool containers. So fun, and love to stack them. Wow, I'm becoming that nerd. But
Hey,
it's okay.
nerds are cool. I'm
It's
with you.
okay. I shout out to nerds as well. But yeah, no, I do. I have a ridiculous amount of leftovers because again, I love to cook. So, and I don't like to waste. So, and I want it all to fit. Put those three together. Yeah, it's an entire cabinet dedicated.
And that's what it's all about. All right, so let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Ready.
Ready, set, go. All right, let's get wild. What is your favorite thing to cook of all time?
Chocolate souffle. Love it because it's my favorite food to eat.
I knew you were a very talented cook, but I did not expect to hear the word souffle today.
It's a tricky one. The first time I did, I think it took me maybe 7 times in one. So, again, my family gets the benefit from all my fails.
So when you think about your kids, and maybe this isn't your kid, maybe this is you, what is the biggest mess they've ever created? Maybe it's spilling food, maybe it's paint. Is there a time that sticks out to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I do
Why, thank
love
you.
to paint and I love to spread out because I have tons and tons of paint.
You can't have the two paint colors touching each other.
Yes, exactly. That would be a challenge. No, that would be a really big challenge. I would have to say when I'm painting like in a house or I'm painting, I certainly make a tremendous mess, but that's all I can think of at the top of my head right now.
And then I know you like to travel as well. What is your favorite place you've ever traveled to?
My favorite place, gosh, favorite place. I would say more for the memories of it. We went to St. Lucia several years ago and renewed our
Ooh.
vows, and I thought it was so corny. I didn't want to renew our vows. I'm married almost 21 years, and it was my
Well, congrats.
7-year-old. Thanks. I know that sounded awful. I didn't want to renew my vows. I was like, we did that already. My 7-year-old wanted to plan a wedding. She wanted to plan the whole thing, so I gave her a budget. And she planned the whole wedding. We invited friends and family. I had just sold the company, so I treated everybody to a trip. And it was better than the first wedding in so many ways. And our vows were even better. So kudos to her. But that trip and that experience, I'd say, was the best. My favorite place to go was Spain. I absolutely, and I can't wait to get back there.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But we do love to travel. We just had to cancel a trip to Alaska. So it's sad. It does make me, very, very sad, but we will get back there soon.
Yes. So in addition to having a 7-year-old who plans weddings, something else that's very cool about you is your tap dancing background. And I'm a tap dancer. No, I'm not. But what would you say is the biggest thing you learned from tap dancing?
I learned that the brain is like a path. And if you keep practicing, you'll be able to build on that. So I think that goes for work as well, for my career. You try these things, you practice it, you fail, you do it again, and you hopefully learn from what you've done before. So when I'm tap dancing, particularly like a really hard combination, or I'm looking at a really tough challenge at work, I think of it in the same way, that I've got to practice it, I've got to attack it in different ways. But then I should never have to, that becomes part of my brain. I shouldn't have to learn that again. And that's why I tried to explain to my kids it's a life skill. They're going to listen to this and their eyes are going to roll behind their heads like 3 times.
That's their job. Come on.
Yeah. But it's the same thing. I mean, you've made this mistake at work. Hopefully, you've hired a person that you knew you shouldn't, and then you see that same characteristic in somebody 2 years later. Like, I hope I've learned my lesson. And so that's what I'd say is the most similar about tap dancing, and that skill is really why I do say it's a life skill.
It is. And I like that analogy. It's kind of like when you think about sports, you think of muscle memory and how you
Mhm.
get so much better and more refined at something the more you do it and don't have to think about it. Same thing applies to the mental standpoint on the business world. It's really brain muscle memory. And
Yeah,
so what you're saying there about tap dancing totally applies to the business world as well.
for sure.
Well, Sue, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your tap dancing tips. I'm going to hit you up if I have any problems getting my leftovers into all their proper containers. And where is the best place for people to connect with you, to connect with Vesta? And also, if you want to give a shout out to your podcast, Happy Marketer Connection, which is something at the time of this recording, hot off the press, very exciting. Whatever you want to shout out about that, be my guest.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the podcast, and thanks to you, Max. It's like the community building. I am not a podcast producer, so thank you for letting me fail and do a couple recordings and not know what I'm doing.
Oh,
To
of course.
now working with you.
I just love yelling at you. That's my passion. No, I'm just kidding. No,
It
you're a
works.
natural.
It absolutely works. So I'm excited about the Happy Marketer Connection. Like you, I get to just talk to some really incredible marketers and hear their stories and bring some positivity into the world. I am absolutely considered one of the most optimistic people. And so I think if I can bring that positivity to others through the podcast, that's exciting. To find me, it's susan.frech@vesta-go.com. It's Frech, like, and as Brendan, he'll appreciate this, Omara says, it's Frech like Shrek. Or you can find me on LinkedIn at Sue Frech. So that would be happy to connect with anybody that's listening here, because again, my favorite pastime is connecting with marketers and brand folks.
Absolutely. So Frech. Frech. I'm sure you never get that joke.
Yes.
Last thing here, final thoughts. So a happy edition of final thoughts, some happy final thoughts. It could be anything you want. It could be a line. It could be a tap dancing solo, whatever you want. Send us off here.
I will just say that during all of these crazy times that we're going through right now, hopefully something positive came out of it. I know it has for me, all these new skills and people I'm connecting with in a different way. But I'm really hoping that in any of the negatives or hurdles that we cross, that you can bring something positive out of it.
I am all for positivity and positive about that. Thank you, Sue, for sharing your story, and congrats on the Happy Marketer Connection podcast. Check it out. It is the most happiest, marketingist, connection-y, amazing thing that you'll listen to. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also check us out on Good Pods, where you can find all the podcasts your friends, family, and other favorite people are listening to. In addition, you can dive into our marketing, business growth, and more resources at hippodirect.com/blog and hippodirect.com/newsletter. That newsletter is the Hippo Digest, and it's your place for wild marketing ideas every single week. And last but certainly not least, come say hey on your favorite social media platforms at the handles Hippo Direct and Max Branstetter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!